Med school grad ignored by his own parents. He ships them a box of all his accomplishments. Dad shows up with tears, apologies, and asks if it's too late to make amends. My name is Nathan. I'm 24, and I graduated from medical school 2 weeks ago. It was supposed to be the best day of my life, the moment I'd been working toward through late nights in the library, skipped events, and constant stress that often felt like it might crush me before exams ever did. But instead of feeling proud as I stood with my class, I felt hollow. Everyone was there to celebrate, except my parents. It was a bright afternoon in Boston, a kind that makes the Charles River shimmer like something out of a film. Around me, classmates hugged their families, posed with professors, and toasted with cheap champagne. I stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, diploma in hand, waiting for someone to wave or call out my name. Nothing. I checked my phone twice. No texts, no missed calls, just silence. So I called. It rang 5 times before my mom answered. Her voice was upbeat, with the sounds of laughter and music in the background. "Hi, sweetie. Is everything okay?" I stared at the screen, stunned. "Just wondering where you guys are." "Oh, right," she said, as if she'd forgotten something minor, like picking up groceries. "We're on a cruise with your brother. Remember? He just got that new job offer. We thought it would be a fun way to celebrate." I paused. Let that sink in. They missed my medical school graduation to take a cruise with Brian, my younger brother. The one who had just accepted a sales job at a startup and had been talking about it like he'd made VP of Google. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just gave that tight, close-lipped smile you wear when you're trying to keep something sharp inside from getting out. "Then don't bother showing up to my future either," I said, and hung up. They didn't contact me the rest of the day. No messages, no apology. That evening, still dressed in my gown and tie, I went home and pulled a box from my closet. I'd put it together months ago during one of those long, quiet nights when it becomes clear you've been putting more into a relationship than the other person ever has. Inside were copies of every acceptance letter I'd received, undergrad, med school, residency. Letters I'd sent to my parents over the years, hoping for excitement, usually receiving indifferent replies, or none at all. They were printed emails from when I made the dean's list, past step 1 and step 2. Even a handmade birthday card I once gave them because I couldn't afford a proper gift. They never opened it. Taped to the inside of the box lid was a note I wrote last year, after Brian received his 3rd car from them in 5 years, while I was still catching buses to rotations. It read, "If you ever wonder why I stopped trying to earn your approval, read everything inside, out loud. Maybe then you'll hear what I've been silently shouting for years." I paid for overnight shipping and mailed the box to their house the next week. I never heard back. No message, not even a delivery confirmation. I assumed they tossed it, but 2 weeks later, there was a knock at my door. I was reheating leftover Thai food when I opened it. My dad stood there, holding the box. He looked older, but not in the usual way. He looked worn out, like someone finally catching up with something they'd been running from. His shoulders sagged. His eyes were red. I didn't know," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "Didn't know what?" He held up the box. "Why didn't you tell us?" I pointed to the note taped inside. "Go ahead, read it." He stood frozen in the doorway, gripping the box like it might break if he moved wrong. His lips were pressed into a hard line, the kind he made when he saw bills he didn't want to pay, or when Brian got in trouble and he had to play the tough guy for a few minutes before giving in. I stepped aside. The silence stretched between us. Eventually, he walked in slowly. He sat down at my small dining table, the one where I'd eaten too many microwave meals alone while studying for the MCAT. the one they never visited. He placed the box in front of him and opened it. I watched his hands tremble slightly as he unfolded the first letter, my scholarship offer from NYU, which I turned down for financial reasons. Then came the congratulatory email from Johns Hopkins and the one from my current hospital offering me a residency spot. I had highlighted phrases like top candidate and we're thrilled to offer you. He kept pulling out pages like evidence in a case he hadn't realized he was on trial for. He didn't speak, just nodded faintly, lips moving as he read. Finally, he reached the card I'd made for their anniversary in med school. Construction paper, handwritten note, because I couldn't afford anything else. I sat across from him, arms crossed, heart pounding, not from anger, but from something colder, emptier. Part of me wanted him to break down, to say sorry and mean it. But he didn't cry. He looked up and said, "I didn't know you felt this way." I laughed, not bitterly, just the kind of breath you let out when you're too tired to feel much else. "How could you not?" I asked. "Every time Brian did something average, you threw a celebration." When I passed step 2, one of the hardest exams in medicine, I got a cool buddy text. Then nothing. When I made the dean's list 3 years running, Mom said, "Well, that's what we expect from you." No well done, no we're proud, just expectations. He opened his mouth, but closed it again. I kept going. You threw a backyard barbecue when he got a job selling insurance. But when I matched into one of the best internal medicine programs on the East Coast, you said you'd try to come to the white coat ceremony and never showed up. There was always a reason, and it was always about Brian. My dad cleared his throat. He's needed more help. "No," I said firmly. "He's needed more attention, and you gave it, whether he asked or not. Even when I was drowning, when I needed a ride, a meal, or just someone to say, 'I'm proud of you.' You were helping him move or loaning him money he wouldn't repay." I leaned forward. "Do you even remember when I called after Mom missed my white coat ceremony?" He blinked. You were in New York?" "Boston," I replied. "I told you the date 6 times. She said she forgot." After that, I stopped trying. The pause that followed wasn't long, but heavy. Long enough for reality to settle in, not long enough to fix it. Finally, he picked up the note and read it aloud. Each word landed like glass. "If you ever wonder why I stopped trying to earn your approval, read everything inside out loud. Then maybe you'll hear what I've been screaming in silence for years." He set it down, looked at me. I didn't look away. "I didn't realize we made you feel so invisible," he said. I was quiet, my hands clenched under the table, because the truth is, I didn't feel invisible. I felt ignored, like they chose not to see me, like my achievements only mattered if they matched their narrative. Brian needed support, and I could manage on my own, so I didn't need theirs. "Maybe you didn't mean to," I finally said, "but that's how it felt." He stared at the table. Then, gently, he slid the box toward me and stood. "Your mother should have been here. We both should have. I'll tell her that." I didn't respond. He looked like he wanted to say more, but instead pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "This came last week. We thought it was junk at first, but it's from the hospital." I took it. It had my name on it, but my old address had been crossed out and forwarded. Inside was a card, thick paper, embossed seal from my residency program. A short note from the director, "Nathan, thank you for your incredible dedication and leadership. You've been selected as the incoming chief resident. We can't wait to see where your journey takes you." My dad read over my shoulder. "Chief resident?" I nodded. "Yeah. That's when he asked, "Why didn't you tell us?" I held the envelope. "Because I wanted to see if you'd find out on your own." He nodded slowly and turned toward the door. I watched him go, unsure if he felt regret, guilt, or something else. Maybe all of it. But he didn't leave. Not right away. He paused at the door, hand resting on the handle, as if weighing whether he had the right to say anything more. He took a deep breath. "I know I haven't earned the right to ask this," he said finally. "But is there still a way to fix this?" The question didn't land gently. It dropped like a stone. Not because I hadn't thought about it before. I had, many times. But because I genuinely didn't know the answer. There were years of silence sitting heavy on my chest. Years of missed calls and milestones that went unacknowledged. And no amount of letters in a box or a single difficult conversation could undo all of that. I didn't answer him right away. Instead, I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. It had started to drizzle. A soft mist glowing under the orange streetlights. My reflection looked back at me, older than I remembered, tired in a way photos don't show. "I stopped trying to fix this a long time ago," I said quietly, "because it was never mutual. I'd call, you were too busy. I'd invite, you always had an excuse. After a while, you stop expecting anything. That's the only way it stops hurting." He nodded slowly, his face pale. "I just thought you were doing fine, that you didn't need anything." That phrase, "you didn't need anything," I'd heard it so often, it may as well have been our family motto. As if being capable meant I wasn't worthy of care. As if independence made me less deserving of attention. "I needed a dad," I said. "Not money, not advice, just someone who showed up. Someone who cared when I was struggling. Someone who cared when I wasn't." He walked back to the table, sat down again, and pulled something from the box. It was a brochure from my hospital interview day, creased, with handwritten notes scrawled in the margins. He flipped it over and read what I had scribbled on the back. "Hope they see me. Hope I belong." He set it down and looked at me. "You've always belonged. I don't know how I didn't see it." "You didn't miss it," I said evenly. "You ignored it." That hit harder. He winced slightly, as if the words had a physical sting. For a moment, I almost regretted saying it that way. But then I remembered the phone call on graduation day. The cruise. My mom's cheerful voice, light and unconcerned. Like she had no idea that day meant everything to me. I remembered standing in a sea of celebrating families, searching for faces that never appeared. "Your mom," he started, then paused. "What about her?" I asked. "She didn't think you'd want her there." That stopped me. "What?" He shifted uncomfortably. "She said you always seemed distant, like we were a burden. She thought maybe you didn't want us around." I let out a dry, exhausted laugh. That's what she believed? After skipping every major moment of my life for Brian's latest crisis or some retreat or getaway, I stopped reaching out because she never listened. Now she thinks I pushed her away? He ran his hands over his face, like trying to wipe off the weight of the conversation. "I don't know, Nathan. I think we both got used to Brian needing more. We assumed you didn't need anything, that you were fine. Do you know what that's like?" I asked, stepping closer. "Spending your whole life being punished for having it together? You don't get praise. You don't get support. You get expectations, and when you meet them, it's quiet. When you exceed them, they just raise the bar. But if you fall, even once, you failed." He stayed quiet, his jaw tensed, his eyes shimmered again. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, the rain tapped softly against the glass. The clock behind me ticked slowly, marking time, or maybe marking the last bits of hope I still held for all this. Then, he reached into his coat and pulled out something unexpected, a photo. Faded, worn, but I knew it instantly. It was from my 8th grade science fair. I was standing next to my project on antibiotic resistance. Awkward smile, oversized shirt. Both of my parents were next to me, arms around my shoulders. "I found this last week," he said. "I forgot we even took it. You were so proud that day." I remembered it too, not just for winning second the last time I was the priority. "I want to do better," he said. "I don't know how to fix this, but if there's a chance, I'll try." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down. My stomach tightened. It was my mom. A text. "Dad told me everything. Please answer if I call. We need to talk." I looked at him. He was watching me, waiting. Maybe for forgiveness, or maybe just a sign that it wasn't too late. But I wasn't ready to decide that yet. What I said next would matter. I didn't reply to the message. Not right away. I stared at it, read it again, then flipped my phone over, face down. My dad kept watching, patient, but aware that he'd already used up more chances than most people ever get. "Do you know what hurts most?" I asked after a long pause. He shook his head. "It's not the missed events. It's not the excuses. It's not even the way you always made Brian feel like the one who mattered most. It's that you assumed I'd just keep accepting it, that I'd keep being the one who understood, who adjusted, who put his own needs last. You didn't think I'd ever stop trying. And when I finally did, you were shocked." He didn't argue, didn't deny it. That silence said everything. I got up and walked to the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water, partly to stall, partly just to give my hands something to do. My reflection stared back at me from the microwave, the same tired expression, the same clenched jaw. I didn't always recognize myself anymore. I looked like someone who had built a life from the ground up, with no one beside him to share it. "I didn't come here to defend myself," he said. "I just wanted to be present for once." I turned. "Why now?" He blinked. "What? Why now?" I repeated. "You ignored everything that mattered for years. Why show up today? Guilt? The box?" He hesitated. "It was when you said not to bother showing up to your future. At first, I didn't think you meant it. Then the box came, and I realized we weren't in your life at all." I sat back down. "You never really were." He nodded, quietly. "That's fair." There was another long pause. Then he said, "She wants to see you." I didn't need clarification. She meant my mother, the same woman who had cared for me through childhood illnesses, who taught me how to tie my shoes, and who eventually redirected all of her attention toward Brian. I hadn't seen her in almost a year. Our last conversation had been a Christmas call. Not to say hello or check in, but to ask if I could help Brian with a deposit. "I don't know if I want to see her," I said. "She's never apologized. Not once." "I think she wants to," he said. "She's just proud and scared that if she reaches out now, it's too late." I took a sip of water. It might be. The silence that followed was full of unspoken things. Then my phone buzzed again. Another text. "Nathan, please just talk to us. I know we failed you." I read it twice, and something inside me shifted. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something loosened. That tight knot of resentment began to soften. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I couldn't keep carrying this weight. "I'll come by," I said quietly. "Tomorrow. But if she starts justifying or blaming, she won't, he said quickly. I get it. He stood slowly, unsure whether to hug me or just leave. I didn't offer a hug. He didn't force one. He picked up the empty box and slipped the photo into his pocket. At the door, he turned one last time. You're a good man, Nathan. I'm sorry we didn't help you become him. I didn't respond, just nodded once. The next day, I pulled into my parents' driveway for the first time in nearly 2 years. The house looked the same. Beige paint, faded shutters, the crooked mailbox Brian had hit backing out too fast one summer. I parked, turned off the engine, and sat there for a moment, breathing, preparing. When I knocked, my mom answered. She looked older, too, but not in the graceful way. This was the kind of aging regret leaves behind. Her hair was tied back, and her hands fidgeted. Nathan, she said softly. Hi. She stepped aside to let me in. The living room was quiet. No TV, no scent of coffee or candles like before. Just stillness. We sat at the dining table. She studied my face, like trying to read a language she once knew. I'm sorry, she said before I was even seated. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed to say it. I nodded. It's a start. She exhaled. I convinced myself for years that you didn't need me, that you were already strong, capable. And Brian, he always needed more. I let that blind me. I'm not saying it was right, just that it happened. There was a pause. It wasn't a mistake, I said. It was a choice. You chose him over me. Repeatedly, she nodded, tears for. You're right, and I was wrong. For once, she didn't try to explain. She just let it sit there. I don't expect anything from you, she said, but I hope one day we can rebuild something. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't walk away. I just looked at her, this person who once meant everything, and slowly became a stranger. I don't know what that looks like, I said, but coming today, it's something. She nodded, trying to smile. Do you want to stay for dinner? I stood. Not yet. Maybe next time. That was 3 months ago. Things are still cautious. We're not some picture-perfect family now, but my parents started showing up. They came to the white coat dinner I hosted. They listened. They asked about my schedule. They brought food once during my night shifts. They even called, just to talk. Brian wasn't thrilled. He called me dramatic, said I was punishing everyone for not praising every success. I didn't argue. I just blocked his number. I don't owe him anything. Not anymore. And for the first time, I feel lighter. Not because life is perfect, but because I let go of the need to prove myself to people who never asked to understand me. That's the thing about family. Sometimes healing starts when they finally notice your absence. I graduated medical school alone, but I started residency with my head high.